All right, Spaceship, because you didn't just send me to a color. I mean, okay, right. I mean, fine. It's this too. You have to. Okay, listen. It is. I don't know why no one's curious, but the only thing that okay, you can read the bill. It's just you need a lot of I mean, you need two ink cartridges. It's over 1,000 pages. Okay, but I mean, it just prints really slowly, and it's like anything else. Like a paper gets jammed, but I mean, you can print it out if you like. Print it out. Print it. I would say it's not a big with all this going on. I mean, print it out. It's a thing. I mean, I know it's 1,000. How many pages is it? It was like 800 to 1,000 pages. But given the seriousness of the whole thing, print it out and read it, or begin to read it. I mean, you'll notice something immediately. I'm not even sure. The part of it is it's not written in legal language. Is what's happening. It's actually written in a way where to say that lawyers could discuss the language. I mean, it was a try to read. I mean, try to read it and realize like what's happening. I mean, it's almost incomprehensible, but it's intentionally incomprehensible. But language does appear like that. It was one statement like that, like the doctor shall be empowered by the state to discuss with patients durable power of attorney and living wills. Like, okay, that's a full sentence. But I'm saying there are full sentences in it. But I'm saying to the degree that you'd be reading it, what you'd be noticing is it's actually incomprehensible, but not because it's hard to read or that you need to be a lawyer to read it. It's that's not legal language. The parts that are readable, like which is only a couple sentences, that yes, the idea is it's up to interpretation over time. That may be why it's worded strangely, but no. Like the majority of the text it's basically I would say for if you were to take into account it's 1,000 pages, the bulk of it is without content. That is, I don't know that there is no bill. I mean, there is no healthcare bill or law. I mean, it's just much of it is there is no one who understands that language. Like, it's not like oh, well, you have to be a lawyer to read this. No, I mean, I would suggest lawyers read it. If you're a lawyer, read it. I mean, that's not legal language. I mean, by the way, part of the point of legal language, one reason a lot of English majors, if you don't know this, I was an English major. And a lot of people, and I was also a writing tutor. A lot of people thought I'd go to law school because being an English major and a writing and literature major is a great like college thing to then go to law school because you're working with language all the time. You can write a paper. Basically, why do you go to a lawyer? The thing you need is the language. So very often, like one reason by bad blood in my family, like my father often called up my uncle because he's an attorney and said, listen, I need to write a document to my accountant. Listen, can you fax me some language? Like, and it was like you have to be a really good writer because it's so specific. It's a matter of fact, my friend Herman, one was so impressed with him is he handled the contracts at our publishing house, and he'd actually he wasn't a lawyer, but he was able to he had learned. I mean, he was such a good writer. I mean, he could write a full contract for to contract a book because he was such a good writer. I mean, you didn't have to be a lawyer. I mean, if you're that good a writer, he just had to he had to read a lot of contracts to become familiar with what the specific language is for a variety of things. But I mean, it's precise is the point. I mean, but I'm saying if you're a writer or a lawyer, print out the bill and read it. What you'll notice is that it doesn't really make any sense, and there's very little content. It doesn't really make any sense. I mean, there's not much. It really, there is no bill. I mean, there never was a bill. It's just that there is language in there, like, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's that part, like, that one sentence, like, wait a minute, I mean, that's sort of, but the fact that there's cute language in there like that's like I mean, that is, like, just to fuck with people like me. I mean, it's like, that's not real. I mean, that never, the doctor shall be empowered by the state to talk. I mean, it's it's kind of like that Senator Flake who, at the hearing, asked a question and they did something something as though they were signaling to social media people that it was like a deep question, and it wasn't. It's an academic question, but he's just a dick. Like, so it's the same thing. Like, that language is the language that would get inherited wealth over to the state. Someone's just a dick. Like, okay, but I'm saying, like, other than that kind of thing, though, most of it's incomprehensible to anyone. I mean, there is no bill. That's part of it. I mean, why aren't they discussing the language? Well, we never are going to get health care for all the reasons I talked about in the other videos. But we never were. I mean, I said this at the beginning. I said this way back. Like, I said this with a bill when I printed it out. I said this when they were the Supreme Court was about to declare it unconstitutional, but you turn on your TV and, like, all of a sudden it was like the Trayvon Martin case. Like, there's been a shooting. Like, it was like all of a sudden the news was just filled up with, like, we got a racial profiling thing. But so it's important, but wait, like, the Supreme Court's meeting, like, they kept doing things like that. Well, of course, there's not going to be a bill, but there's not going to be any health care. But the reason is what we talked about in the other ones. I mean, if we started to put in place health care for people, we would be punished by capital flight. I mean, that's the exact kind of thing that's deemed by international banks to be irrational, meaning it harms. They're holding billions of dollars of our currency. If anything, I mean, if anything if that kind of thing, like certainly healthcare, building the infrastructure, anything, or even attempts to stimulate the economy, if it in any way harms transnational investors, they see. It's not just that they'll pull their money out; it's that they'll pull their money out to demonstrate, like, if you ever do anything like that again, like it's actually there's what's called they've called it the international lenders are like all that sort of network of banks that operates transnationally, like they are often it's referred to as a virtual Senate, because at any given time, like, should a government be moving towards something that would dip the value of the currency, it's not just a matter that they don't want it to dip. The indication is there's going to be more healthcare. The indication is we're going to build more bridges if we're doing infrastructure. They have to punish the government and to show them, like, there's no way you're going to do anything that depreciate, that harms this. We need a low-wage, low-growth economy, because that's where you park your money. That's where currencies are stable. If there's growth of any kind, a healthcare system, infrastructure, stimulation to the economy, new production. I mean, anything like that. Part of the process is that kind of growth depreciates the currency. But remember, what China does, for example, right? They depreciate the value of their currency intentionally because they're an exporter. So that's why they're doing so well with exports. It's really cheap to buy yen. So that, like, facilitates them, having great production and selling a lot of goods. If the yen had a high price on it, you say, well, geez, I'd love to import from China, the equipment or whatever, anything. I'd love to import lamps from China because I sell, I have a big company that sells furniture. I'd love to import thousands of lamps from China, but the problem is the yen is so expensive, because you have to buy it you have to import it in the seller country's currency. I'm not gonna take. Do you know how many dollars it would take to get the yen to do it? It's not worth it. I mean, so they depreciate their currency, so it's cheap to buy yen. So therefore, like, their production of that's why everything's, like, made in China, right? I mean, so if we do anything that is that kind of growth depreciates the currency, and they actually depreciate even more to keep it going. So that kind of depreciation isn't bad. It's good. If that's why it's depreciating. Okay, so here's the thing. Right, I mean, if we were to do anything, so if we were to do any growth, healthcare, infrastructure, any of it, it will depreciate the currency just like China's currencies, like, depreciate. Okay, fine, we'll be punished. They'll actually punish the government to sort of indicate, to stop them from doing it. But the problem is, why can they do that? In the 70s, in our lifetime, it's why the baby boom knows nothing about it, the main thing that was removed is they deregulated the currency market and they removed capital controls, meaning the movement of giant blocks of capital in and out of the country. If there was what China has, like, if you buy up $1 billion of our currency, if the Royal Bank of Scotland holds $1 billion of our currency, a capital control would mean, well, they have to hold it for 10 years. because what it would be is if they couldn't, if they could move it in and out as they wanted, it would be a threat to democracy and a threat to, we want a healthcare system, like you're punished. So right, you have to keep it in for 10 years. They removed capital controls, and they removed any regulation on currency. So the value of currency is determined by the market for currency, but that's not what it would. That shouldn't be how it is, because then what you get is you get people who want to park their currency. It's seeking low growth and low wages because that's where you park it. Well, then how do you make your money? You park it there where it's stable. Okay, that's what keeps it stable. And then when there's a war or something, like something's blowing up, what's happening is something blows up and then they put the fire out. Then the rebels do this, but then they give it. All right, there's all these things happening really fast that are like disastrous. The currency's going up and down and up and down and up and down. So what you do is you buy up $1 billion of like Iraqi currency when the bombing starts, but the minute like the bombs stop falling, the currency goes back up in value, so you sell it back, you sell it back off, and you make money on the spread. The return time on investments of blocks of currency like that without capital controls, the return time on investment is like minutes. They're doing it that fast, but they do it in a war zone. But they have to have a stable place to park it. So they need a low-wage, low-growth economy where nothing's happening. No healthcare, no production, no anything. That's where you park your money. Okay, if the currency starts appreciating because we're getting healthcare and that kind of growth, or we're building bridges, right? No, they have to punish the government because it interferes with what they're doing. Okay, that's what we mean when we say we're hostage. But I mean that's the big reason.